So the recording is now started. So welcome to everybody today to today's webinar. It's called The Risks Faced by Older Drivers on the Roads and Safe Driving Tips to Help Reduce Them. Just again, my name is Rob Hurd. I am the chair and founder of the Older Drivers Forum. So you know a little bit background about me. I am a retired police officer. I worked for Hampshire Constabulary for 30 years and I retired 2 years ago. And at the latter part of my retirement, I was head looking after road safety for Hampshire and Thames Valley Police. So let's get started. We have 4 speakers today. The first speaker is actually going to be myself, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the Older Drivers Forum and why I set it up. So let me just share my screen and I shall just pick up my PowerPoint. Okay, let's just start that so you can all see that. Rightio, so that's the PowerPoint going for you. So I'm just going to play. This whole week is actually being supported by Valerie Singleton. Some of you will have known Valerie. Valerie Singleton is, as many of you know, is got an OBE. She actually was a television presenter, first started her work basically in films and reports and things various like that. And also she is, after leaving the show in Blue Peter in 1972, Val went on to present nationwide and also became a Blue Peter's roving reporter, popping up in the studio and on film reports and fronting Blue Peter special assignments. Valerie also undertook 2 stints on the Money programme for BBC 2 and Radio 4. And in 1994, Valerie was presented with an OBE for her services in broadcasting. More recently, she has worked closely with the road safety and breakdown organisation GEM, Motoring Assist, to promote safer driving in the older age. And you will have seen some films, if you want to, on our website as well. So what I'm going to do now is just play the very first video so you can see all about Valerie introducing this to you.
Hello, we're delighted that you can join today's webinar. This webinar is just one of several webinars taking place this week, hosted by the Older Drivers Forum. Each webinar is on a different subject and designed to help and support you to carry on driving safely for longer. This week of webinars is to support the Project Edward Week of Action titled Fit for the Road. Project Edward stands for Every Day Without a Road Death, and it's an annual UK-wide campaign for road safety. It's backed by government, the emergency services, highways agencies, road safety organisations and British businesses. Shockingly, on average, 5 people a day are killed and around 150,000 people are injured each year on roads in Great Britain. Unfortunately, 20% of all deaths on our roads are older people. As older licence holders is increasing every year, fatalities for drivers aged 70 and over are forecast to increase by 22% by 2040. As an older driver myself, I am fully aware how we can't become complacent about our abilities. We all need to focus on our own road safety and making sure that we are fit for the road, not only to protect ourselves, but others. This week of webinars, I hope will give you lots of useful information and help us all become safer road users while supporting us to carry on driving safely for longer. I wish you all the very best and please stay safe.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Valerie, for that introduction. So a little bit about my talk now for you, which is a guide to the Older Drivers Forum. So I set up the Older Drivers Forum because of this particular collision. In my career, I worked as a senior investigating officer in the Serious Collision Investigation Unit for Hampshire Police. And unfortunately, that meant I attended many fatal and potential fatal collisions. This is one particular unfortunate incident I dealt with back in March 2011 and involved a gentleman called Dr. Turner Rafe Waddell. He was a retired GP. And on this particular evening, he was driving down a dual carriageway when he got confused and ended up driving the wrong way down a dual carriageway for over a mile. Unfortunately, he had a head-on collision with a Neil Cahoon, 28-year-old, who was driving the red car you see in the crash there. Unfortunately, Neil lost his life as a result of the collision. We carried out a full investigation and actually found that Dr. Weldell was blind in one eye and below the legal eyesight limit in the other. And even though he was a retired GP, he thought he was fit to drive on the road. And that really made me decide what we could do to help and support the mature motorists on the road. So what I ended up doing is writing a research document all about it. And you can see here what happened is Dr. Wardell was actually prosecuted for causing death by careless driving and sentenced to 9 months imprisonment. We were looking for a death by dangerous, but we accepted a death by careless because we were never going to be sending this gentleman to prison. But as you can see there, he should never have been on the road. This lady here is Neil's mother, Patricia, and actually she was so incensed and worried about the risks that herself as becoming an older driver and other older drivers on the road, that she wanted that there needed to be something happening across the country. So I ended up writing a research document about it, and from that set up the Older Drivers Forum. So let's just go through a few things. Many of you will know these things, but it just gives us a little background. As you well know, in the UK, we come to renew our license at the age of 70. And then it's renewable every 3 years, unless we've got some notifiable medical condition or requirement that requires us to renew it every year or every 2 years. It's a self-certification system, so we tick boxes ourselves, and it's not down to the GP to inform the DVLA of any conditions that we have. That is our legal responsibility to do ourselves. We also have to self-certify that our eyesight is okay, and that is done by us being able to read a number plate at 20 meters. So those are the main important bits when you renew your license. Now, many questions I'm getting back in at the moment are people who have applied for their driving licenses, and the DVLA are swamped due to the COVID situation. And many people have actually applied 3 months before the 70 years have come up and are still waiting for their licenses to come back. Well, there is a thing called Section 88, which if your license details haven't changed, for example, if no one's told you that you have to stop driving and you haven't got a new medical condition since your last license, then as soon as you apply and send it to the DVLA, you actually can continue driving for 12 months on your old license. That way it covers these late delays on licenses. But if you want to know a little bit more information about that, then I suggest you have a look on my website, olderdriversforum.com, and on there you'll see there's a bit called the law and the DVLA, and it will explain to you all about Section 88. So have a look to see if that's applicable to you. So as in March 2021, there are just under 5.3 people aged 70 and above driving our roads, which is great. And actually for the last few years, I've seen those numbers increasing around about 250,000 every year, which is great because it's showing that we're all wanting to continue driving. The oldest person holding a driving license is 107, and you can see the age groups there, what the expectations are. We are going to have an increasing older population driving, which is great, but we need to make sure that we are fit and healthy to do so. So part of my research said that there was a three-pronged approach in helping older drivers. The first one was helping by raising awareness of what is available, what the risks you face, and also how you can overcome those risks. Also encourage people to do voluntary driving assessments. Now we have another one of those talks about voluntary driving appraisals and assessments this week on Wednesday. So if you'd like to see that, that would be great to watch for yourselves. The other is encouraging people to do regular eyesight tests. And again, we have a webinar on eyesight on Friday. So if you'd like to see that, that would be great for you to get an optician telling you all about eyesight and the issues that can affect driving. So those are 3 things that I've said that we want as a forum to do. So the forum is made up as a partnership approach. It's a non-profit organisation, and it's really hosted under Hampshire Police at the moment because that's where I set it up. And it has lots of organisations involved, from the police, the fire, DVLA accredited driving mobility centres, local road safety teams, Age UK, Institute of Advanced Motorists, ROSPA, and other specialists and advisors, and people from the older group as well, to give us all that help and support. And our aim is to support and engage with the older people in order for them to carry on driving safely for longer. That's our key thing. We want you to give you all the practical informative advice to help you carry on driving safely for longer. But we also need to inform you of the risks that people do face on the road and what things can be done to reduce them. And also, there will be a time when all of us have to retire from driving. You know, we have to retire from work, we have to retire from skiing, maybe when our knees pack up, and actually there will be a time when we need to retire from driving. So we need to advise people about when is the right time, because some people carry on too long, but some people stop too early because of lack of confidence. We also are there to give advice to family and friends, and also medical practitioners and opticians. So how do we raise awareness? Well, we have our dedicated website, theolderdriversforum.com, which you haven't explored. I really would suggest you have a good look through the website. Lots of useful videos and things for you to see on there, and advice on everything. And like I said, we're not advertising anybody to make money out of this. This is purely for giving support to you. We also work and help with a national website run by ROSPA called olderdrivers.org.uk. We run regular webinars like these ones you're seeing today. We do lots of TV and radio. In fact, Graham, you'll be seeing later, was actually on the One show after doing some assessments with some celebrities on that as well. We also run a week-long roadshow every year. This, because of COVID, is our replacement of that this year, because we're supporting Project Edward's Fit for the Road scheme. And also we have publications which you can either read online or get a printed copy. And these are some of them: Driving Safely for Life or Managing Without a Car. So when we look at voluntary driving appraisals, what we say, there are two options. One is your normal confidence buildings. These usually involve a driving instructor coming to your home address, taking you out in your car and carrying out a confidential appraisal of your driving. So it's not a pass fail or anything. They just come along, brush up on your skills and tell you some of those bad habits that you've got so you can reduce the risks on the road. And you can see there are local run council schemes, like in Hampshire, we have one that Graham runs called Driver Skills 60+. We also have ROSPA, IAM, and lots of other organizations. And on our website, we have a link and list to all those that are doing them. So have an explore under courses on our website. The other option is if you've got an underlying medical condition that may affect your ability to drive. What we suggest is you visit one of the many driving mobility centres across the country. So there's about 21, and they've all got outreach centres, so nobody has to travel more than 30 minutes or 30 miles to get one. These are all DVLA accredited, and you have an assessment with a driving instructor and an occupational therapist. And in the assessment, they look at cognitive issues with you, maybe a few little tests where you're doing reaction times and various things like that. But they also then take you out on a road and just give you some input on your driving as well and advise you about things that you need to do. These will be done in the centre's vehicles, and they can give advice on mobility and driver aid. So for example, if you've got a weakness on one side or maybe lack of movement in your head, then actually they give you advice about things that you can attach to your vehicle to make it easier for you to drive. So that's something I would recommend if you've got a medical condition. So other thing I talked about was eyesight. Now, this is something that affects all of us as we get older. It's something that can occur gradually and without us realizing. And we recommend that people undertake an eyesight test at least every 2 years, but I would say perhaps every year is a good idea, certainly as we get into latter years. We know that at driving at night, many older people try to avoid driving at night because they can't see so clearly. And actually, that's just due to our eyes. As we get older, our eyes, like any muscle, start to relax and not work as quickly as they used to. And in fact, at the age of 15, your eyesight, if it's blared out by a headlight, it will take up to 2 seconds to recuperate. Whereas at the age of 65, this will take up to 9 seconds. So you can really understand as we get older why we don't want to drive, because if we do that, get that glare from headlights, we're going to take much longer to recuperate with our eyes to see clearly again. 33% of people over the age of 40 are affected by these 4 different types of conditions. So that's glaucoma, cataracts, blindness, and age-related macular degeneration. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just put up a picture up on the screen on here. Okay, and I'd like you to have a look at this and tell me what you think this is. What particular condition out of those 4? So I'm just going to share a poll with you on this particular one. Let me just put up the eyesight condition one for you. There you go. If you'd just like to have a vote, so which of the 4 medical conditions represented in the picture do you think cause this? Basically, you can only see ahead, tunnel vision. Is it glaucoma, cataracts, blindness, or age-related macular degeneration? Okay, just letting you all do that for a second. It's great you're all taking part. We've got around 70% people so far taking part, so I'll add a little bit more time for people to vote on that. Up to 80% now, so that's good. That's given us a good indication. So I'm just going to end the poll there and I'll share you the results. So as you can see from the results, 29% think it's glaucoma, 14% think it's cataracts, 1% blindness, and 56% think it's age-related macular degeneration. Well, it's actually glaucoma. Glaucoma allows you to be able to see centrally, but you start to lose your peripheral vision. And actually, with age-related macular degeneration, it's a flip over the other way. So the center part goes dark and you can't see much, and you can only see the peripheral side. So that really does show you how things can vary as we get older. Okay, so that's just having a look at that. So what can you do in future? Let's have a look. So what can you do? The important things I say to you is do not be complacent about your abilities. Okay, it's really important. Many of us will say, well, I've been driving 50, 60 years. I've never had a problem. I'm perfectly okay. But sometimes you may be one of the highest risks because you've picked up bad habits. And the only way to be able to make sure that you're safe is think about, like I said, a regular eyesight test and get a driving appraisal. You know, a car is a lethal weapon if we don't look after it and don't look after it properly, but we also equally need to look after ourselves and check out that we're fit to drive. So when you renew your license, don't just tick those boxes. Consider a driving appraisal or an assessment. Also get an eyesight test, including what I say, field of vision. So it picks up, not just that you can read the number plate, but you can pick up what's going on at the side. Also seek support and advice. That's where we say, come and visit our website, have a look what's going on there. Also, when was the last time any one of you looked at the highway code? Maybe that's something we need to pick up. The highway code's constantly being rewritten. Also, plan your journeys. Also, we will also look at some point at retiring from driving. Some people do this too early, and like I said earlier, some people carry on too long. So it's about planning for the future. Start early and develop a plan about what you're going to do. This way you can make a gentle transition. Okay, so myself and Kit, who's going to be talking shortly, are actually members of the Older Drivers Task Force. That means we're representing with the Department for Transport, and we're working with Road Safety Foundation to come up with ways that we can help mature motorists to carry on driving safely for longer in the future. So just to let you know, we are doing a lot in the background to help and support older drivers. So that's pretty much me just talking to you all today. What I'm just going to come up next to is end my show there, and we're just going to come up and I'm going to stop my screen, and our next speaker is going to be our Dr. Kit Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell worked at the Transport and Research Laboratory for between 1970 to 1994, focusing on public transport, transport planning and social effects of transport policies. From 1982, he was head of the Environment Division. From the early 1980s, he ran the TRRL's Research on Transport for Disabled People. He co-chaired the US Transport Research Board Committee on Accessible Transport and Mobility between 2003 and 2009. And he's also an emeritus member of TRB. He is a member of the Road Safety Foundation's Older Drivers Task Force, which reported back in 2016. And as I said, we're now looking at a new report, which is going to be coming out hopefully this year in October. He's also, and I'm really pleased to say, a member of our Older Drivers Forum. So thank you very much, Kit. I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about risks facing older drivers, and particularly the kind of accidents they're more likely to have, so that you can take extra care in those situations. The average older driver is a safe driver, but is fragile and is more likely to be injured if you're involved in a crash. This shows the percentage of people who are injured in car accidents who die, and you can see how it goes up with increasing age. Men are the blue line with triangles. At 40, just over 0.5% of injuries are fatal. But by the time they're over 80, over 90, that's gone up to 6%, 10 times. Women who tend to have lower energy crashes have about a third of 40-year-olds are killed in crashes, but that goes up to just under 4% over 85. That's an increase of 13 times. That's why so many older people are killed in crashes, although they're not involved in so many crashes. So are older drivers a danger to other road users? Drivers aged 70 and over are involved in fewer car crashes than any 10-year group of car drivers aged less than 70. This shows the number of crashes in 2010, the red bars, and 2019, the blue bars, by 10-year age group. And you can see the numbers come down steadily with increasing age. Also, they've reduced for all age groups between 2010 and 2019. Now, there are different numbers of people in each age group. So let's look at it as the risk per driver of being involved in a car crash. Again, the numbers come down steadily with age, and in 2019, the over 70s had the lowest risk of being involved in a crash of any age group. So older drivers are not a danger to other vehicle operators, but they also kill and injure fewer pedestrians. This is the number of pedestrians seriously injured by drivers in 10-year bands. The red lines are the 5 years, 2010 to 14. The blue are the 3 years, 2016 to 18. And you can see after age 30, the numbers come down steadily with increasing age. You can also see that the numbers haven't changed that much since between the first and second time period, but for over 80s, the number has gone up quite a bit. And that lines up with what insurance companies tell us, that they're getting more cases of third-party injury claims against older drivers. And these seem to be caused by pedal confusion in automatic cars to a large extent. Again, we can turn this into the risk of injuring a pedestrian seriously for different age groups. And you can see the number comes down steadily to 60, then plateaus, but does in recent years go up for over 80s. So older drivers are not a great risk to other drivers or pedestrians. Are they at risk themselves? Younger drivers have the highest casualty rates. For older drivers, slight casualty rates per driver start to increase after age 80, and the rates per mile driven after age 70. This shows the number of injuries per driver per year by age. And you can see that for slight injuries, which is the best measure of accident involvement, the number comes down steadily with age and is lowest for 70-year-olds. Goes up slightly for 80s, but is still a lot less than 50 in youngers. But if you look at the numbers killed, these go up after age 40. This is on a different scale. There are 100 times as many slight as fatal injuries. But this shows why there are more fatal injuries to old drivers. The increase in serious deaths and serious injuries is because of fragility, not because of having more crashes. As far as responsibility for crashes go, the police reports on which all this data is based do not assign blame to an accident, but they do assign contributory factors, things like speeding, condition of vehicle or tires, weather, road conditions, and so on. And this plot shows whether drivers have contributory factors involving the driver against them or not. And numbers above 1 are drivers who are more likely to be responsible. Numbers below 1 are drivers who are more likely to be the innocent victim of an accident. And the more likely to be responsible are the young and the old drivers. And of young drivers, it tends to be young men. For old drivers, it tends to be slightly more older women. But older driver accidents are different. Older drivers are less likely to have accidents involving speed. This is fatal car crashes where with a contributory factor of speeding against them. And for teenage fatal crashes, 85% have speeding against them. For over 75-year-olds, it's about 15%. But older drivers are more likely to have accidents because of right-of-way violations. That's jumping yield or stop lines or traffic signals. And the risk of this goes up from 5% of accidents for people in their 20s to almost half for people over 75. The risk of serious crashes that involve turning right across traffic doubles between 50 and 80 plus years old. On this graph, the red line is the risk of being involved in a turning right accident. It reduces with increasing age and experience up to the late 60s, up to 70, and then it doubles. Also interesting, of maneuvers leading to crashes, turning right is much the greatest, except for bends for young drivers, and that's because they speed and come off the road at a bend. But turning right is much more likely to be involved in a serious crash than overtaking, the black line with crosses, or stopping and waiting to go, the blue lines, which would be mainly rear end shunts. All accidents have about 70% of slight accidents at junctions. The red line shows this. It's not age sensitive. Serious accidents are not very age sensitive, about 60% of all accidents. But fatal accidents go up from a third for teenagers to over half at junctions for over 80-year-olds. And what sort of junctions are most likely to be involved? T-junctions, the risk increase doubles between 70 and 80 plus years. This shows the risk of being involved in an accident at a T-junction, a serious accident, and this doubles between 70 and 80 plus, having fallen from a young age. But if you look at this, you're more than twice as likely to have an accident at T-junction than you are at a crossroad, even more than double at a roundabout. And mini roundabouts are sites for almost no serious injury accidents. What sort of T-junctions are greatest risk? It's 30 and 60 mile an hour roads. This shows the risk of being involved in an accident at a T-junction on 30 mile an hour roads and 60 mile an hour roads. They're almost the same after age 65, and both increase rapidly. 30 mile an hour because that's where most T-junctions are. 60 mile an hour because if there is an accident at a T-junction on a 60 mile an hour road, it's likely to be serious. So T-junctions are places that you really do need to take care about. Having been assessed by Graham, who's going to be speaking to you next, now always stop at the yield line at a T-junction, look both ways at least twice. And when I come out, I go on looking as I'm turning out into the road. I hope it's helped to know what sort of accidents you're most likely to experience. And Graham is now going to tell you some of the things you can do to make yourself safer under those conditions. Thank you, Rob.
Well, thank you, Kit, for that. That's most interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that really useful input to us. So we'll have a chat with Kit later on, and I've seen your questions and answers all coming in with lots of questions for Kit later on. So we'll come back to Kit at the end to chat. So we're now moving on to our next speaker, Graham Millwood. Graham Millwood is the Senior Road Safety Officer for Hampshire County Council and leads on Hampshire's driver skills 60+ for the last 12 years. In this time, he has observed driver behaviour in many different situations and worked closely with other local agencies, including the local driving mobility centres. This experience, along with his background as a driver trainer, has enabled him to gain a good understanding of the needs of older drivers and particularly how to mitigate risk as the ageing process begins to have an increasing, albeit gradual effect. Graham is obviously very, very instrumental in supporting us on the Older Drivers Forum, and we really appreciate his hard work and help within that. And Graham's going to feature on several talks this week. So I'll hand you over to Graham to take over from now. Thank you, Graham.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And thank you for the introduction. That will actually cut a little bit of time. Just bear with me while I get the screen up. Save a little bit of time on this presentation. Hopefully everybody can see this and hear me. If not, please message Rob and he'll get a message through to me. Sorry, just get the correct screen up, that will help. So I work for Hampshire County Council's Road Safety Education team, and I've run the driver skills scheme 60+ for 12 years. And as Rob said, I've really got to understand the needs of the older driver, I believe, and taken a very close interest in how to help people. And before we go on, I just want to sort of build on what both Rob and Kit said, really. What are the biggest risks due to age for any driver? It's these very gradual changes which catch us out sometimes in eyesight and the speed at which we process information, often referred to by reaction times. Reaction times, a lot of younger drivers suffer on this because they get distracted, they're not focusing on their driving. So I would say the big thing is to keep focusing on driving rather than thinking about other things around us. And I believe that is something which the people who are more experienced and get older are better at than perhaps some of the younger drivers who find driving very easy. They find they can do it on autopilot a lot of the time until something goes wrong, of course. Complacency was mentioned, and again, tends to happen for for sort of the younger age groups. In my experience, older drivers do take a great interest in driving. It's counted by, I think there are around about 500 people listening to this now. So very important not to get complacent. And I look at it that when we all learnt to drive, we put some tools in our tool bag that enabled us to stay safe. As we get experience, we put more tools in there. We learn by mistakes sometimes. And so that when something unusual happens, we can bring those tools out and know how to deal with that. And of course, the more training we've done, so people that, for example, have done advanced tests, they've got more tools in their tool bag. But a lot of the time, we don't know what we're missing until we've actually been assessed or done some further training. So I would say recommend to everybody just to get a professional to sort of advise on your driving. Many drivers don't see any need for improvement. So I will be talking to the wrong audience here, because everybody that signed up for this clearly has an interest in driving, but many people don't actually see a need and therefore don't take any form of training or assessment. And there's a strong link between this slowly decreasing vision and thinking time as time goes on. You know, safe driving really depends on this earliest possible observation of directional signs, warning signs, road markings, etc. So we can start to build a plan about how to deal with this complicated, potentially complicated situation that we're approaching. And if our vision's not sharp enough, of course, the signs may as well be in a foreign language. They don't really help us until we get nearer, and then we can start to put together this driving plan. And it's a double-edged sword, really, because as we have to wait later to pick up the information on the signs, also our thinking time has reduced, and we can't process the amount of information as quickly as we once could. So, of course, what we have to do is we have to slow down our approach to hazards. We have to take in as much information as we can. And I'm sure when we were younger, these reaction times and better reaction times and better eyesight compensated in many cases, because I talked about complacency driving on autopilot, but these reaction times compensated for the many mistakes I'm sure everybody's made, these near misses, and we get away with it, so we don't learn from those mistakes. But of course, as the age goes on, those habits, those bad habits we've picked up over the years, become more relevant. They become more of a danger, more of a risk to us. So one of the reasons we started our driver skill scheme 60 plus in Hampshire is because although people in their 60s are probably some of the best drivers on the road, safest drivers on the road, that's the time to start thinking about tidying up those habits before we get into older age, really. And older drivers, of course, sometimes get, or so-called older drivers sometimes get a bad press. So why is this? Well, we see headlines saying this 85-year-old, just for an example, has had a nasty crash and there have been fatalities. And they tend to be, when you look at them, right turns across traffic, as Kit was mentioning, particularly on the faster roads. Directional confusion resulting in traffic violations, such as going the wrong way down a dual carriageway or a motorway. And as Kit said, pedal confusion. Now, the normal aging process, in my view, and the time it takes to actually process information goes part of the way, at least part of the way, to explain this in the normal aging process, particularly right turns across traffic. I will be talking a little bit more about that shortly, but I'm not going to mention any further on the driving the wrong way down the motorway or pedal confusion. One, because of the time constraints, but two, I believe from my experience and looking into these, there's no evidence to tell us, but I believe this is largely due to a cognitive impairment, where eventually may be diagnosed as dementia or something, because making a mistake and going down the wrong slip on a motorway, for example, is understandable, but continuing to drive at speed I don't think that would happen without, in my view, some form of cognitive impairment. And it's the same with pedal confusion, going for the wrong pedal, the accelerator rather than the brake, is understandable under stressful situations, but continuing to press it as the car plows through walls, pedestrians, bus stops or whatever, is again, my belief, I've got no evidence for this, is probably due to some form of cognitive impairment. So that's the area, we sort of taken a increasingly interest looking at. I promised I'd mention the new highway code. It says new highway code. It's just going to publish a new booklet. It's currently going through Parliament, and I believe they plan to publish it a bit later in the autumn. And Rob asked me just to put a poll in here. So Rob, if you could just bring this poll up. So it says there, when did you last read the highway code? In the last 2 years, in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years? I haven't read it since I took my driving test. So if you could respond to that, please. And we'll give it plenty of time for you to tick those answers. Rob, you will know how it's going. So if you put the answers up whenever you're ready. So there we have the answers there, or the response. When did you last read the highway code? In the last 2 years, 19%, last 5 years, 18%, but the majority are more than 10 years ago. Now that's nothing unusual, but we would recommend you keep up to date with the highway code. So at least you know what other people are thinking and the right things to do in certain situations. I'm going to just move on to, I should be just moving on to the next slide there, but for the first time, this is actually decided to freeze. Just bear with me while I just come out of there. I'm going to stop sharing because it's frozen, and I'm going to go back in again, and hopefully we'll be up and running again, but never had this in all the practices. Sorry about this. Yes, no, it's not working very well there. I do apologize for this. We haven't actually, there we go, got it. So the 3 elements on the new highway code: introducing a hierarchy of road users to ensure those who can do the greatest harm have the greatest responsibility to reduce the danger or threat they may pose to others. Clarifying existing rules on pedestrian priority on pavements, and that drivers and riders should give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross the road. And thirdly, establishing guidance on safe passing distances and speed when overtaking cyclists and horse riders, and ensuring they have priority at junctions while traveling straight ahead. Now, I find it in some ways a little bit sad that they have to reinforce these, because surely as safe drivers, defensive drivers as we call it, we should be doing all these things anyway. It should be common sense. We have to look after these vulnerable road users. But that's what's they're entering there. It's all online, the highway code, but there will be, as I say, a new booklet published soon, I believe. Roundabouts, I think the title for me certainly has disappeared off the top there, but roundabouts are what we get asked about the most. Now, this is from the highway code. This is a standard roundabout with a left turn, a right turn, and a straight ahead. And the highway code guides us on that. And if the roundabouts have other exits on them, of different shapes and sizes, we just have to apply the knowledge the best we can. Above all, keep an eye on what other vehicles are doing, because we can't always be sure they will be doing the correct thing. So the left turn, clearly, if we take, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but the brown car at the top right is left signal, left lane, fairly straightforward. The intermediate exit, so in other words, not the left first exit, not the right, but the intermediate one. Here we have one intermediate straight ahead. The highway code says the most appropriate lane. Now, normally that would be keep a left driving position. So we will be coming along in the left-hand position, leaving room, even particularly when there are no road markings here, leaving room for another car to come round, and signaling left at the exit prior to the one we want. That signal is really, really helpful, particularly to the cars entering, because they then know it's safe to enter, that we're telling them we're going off. We can do the straight ahead, the intermediate from the right lane, if we need the right lane, such as turning right up here, and particularly where there are 2 lanes coming off. But normally you would just use that if you need it. Normally it is the left-hand lane, and be careful coming through here, because we know that a lot of drivers like to straight line corners, particularly right bends. They cut the corner, so then you may get squeezed out there. So you have to be particularly careful. I would say do not overtake on the roundabout. Now there's a video coming up. You can see here the signboard. We want the second exit, the straight ahead one on this standard roundabout. The left lane we've seen there for straight, but then another left lane comes up just for the left turning. So now we've got 2 cars, one each side of us potentially. We need to check we leave enough space for the one that's followed round on the right by using our door mirrors, and then we signal to come off. That's that one. Roundabouts, right turn. This is where most people have the problem. So we take up a right position normally on the approach. We signal right, and we carry on signal right, staying in the right hand lane until we get to this position here. And then the exit prior to the one we want. And then we switch very quickly from a right signal to a left signal and peel across gently. We don't want any sudden steering, because I'm going to mention later that drivers struggle with anything that's sudden. So we need a left signal. Now, the signal timing is really important. We want to be signaling as soon as it's safe. If we come back, perhaps earlier than it's shown here actually, but if we come back too far, another whole car length, for example, we may confuse this car into thinking we're coming off here. So we wait until there's no chance of that, and then we get that signal on as quickly as possible. And that will really make the job much easier for us, particularly if we then squeeze across. It's very unlikely anybody comes through on our left. So again, we've got a video for that. This time we've got the right turn shown, the third exit. So we're going to pick up the right hand lane on the approach. We're going to assess through the roundabout after the traffic lights here. There are no blockages or anything on the roundabout. So if it's clear, we're going to enter in the right lane. The left lane is dedicated for the first exit. So we should have nobody on our left-hand side here. We can't guarantee it, so we need to check that left-hand door mirror. Now, we just stopped it there because it's a convenient point. It gives me time to talk. As we come round, this is the first exit where people will come on. This is the second exit. We want the third. So we're coming round. We're checking our left mirror to see if anybody's coming around with us. And we're waiting until about the head of this arrow here before we signal left, because that's the earliest we can do it. But we get it on there, not later, and then peel across. Doing that, we should never have a problem, but we know that there's no danger coming around the outside. We've checked that. The only danger can be from this exit coming in here. And I don't know if you noticed, there was a white car coming up. That was the only what we call the danger vehicle. So all we've got to do is check out where that vehicle is. So we just run it. It should go on to. I'm just going to go on. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I don't know why that happened there. So there's the white car coming in. We've just gone back a few meters. We're coming around now. We're waiting for our signal. We're checking out that car. We're signaling left and then peeling across the roundabout. That's that one. Now, we mentioned there are all shapes and sizes of roundabouts, and I haven't got time to go through them all, but this is the spiral roundabout. This one's in Southampton, or sometimes called the gyratory system. There are many of these around these days, and they are designed to get us into the lane for our exit, and then we stay in that lane. We won't have to do those awkward lane changes as we go around this bend. So you can see on this one, one I'm going to show you, we're doing a right turn. So we want the right hand inside lane where the red arrows are there. The yellow dots are just strengthening up the white lines that I've put on there, so it's easier for you to see. And you can see it spirals out. We start in the right lane, and then we're going to the middle lane, and eventually that will spiral us out in that lane to the outside of the roundabout, ready for the exit. Now, this is a video must remember just to turn the sound off on this one. This is the video, the same roundabout that we're doing the right turn to Southampton. It's the fourth exit. So we want to just identify our first exit so we can then count the exits off. And while we're waiting in this queue of traffic, you may be able to see that first exit round to the left, just about around there, certainly as we move. We're told this is the lane we want, so we're going to stay in this lane. As you come across here, you'll see the dotted white lines, which just get us into the lane. They can be confusing for people on the roundabout. But as those lane markings strengthen up, and you can see the boards up there confirm it's the roundabout, we're now in the correct lane and we just stay in that lane. So I'm going to stay near the white line. You'll see the two cars in front of me veer away from it. One of them veers completely away, which is okay, but the other one comes away and then comes back again. So this is where you have to watch out for other cars skipping lanes. Now, this is only the third exit. We want the fourth, so we're going to stay near the right-hand side of that lane. And see, we haven't changed lanes. Now we're in the left lane to leave the roundabout. So if you do it like that and be very careful watching your lanes, you shouldn't have a problem, other than you need to use those door mirrors, because as you well know, people will make mistakes and cut in front of you or not understand the roundabout. And on all the driving assessments we do, we're quite happy to guide people around these type of situations. We're also asked about how to join a faster traffic on the motorway or dual carriageway. Now, some of the dual carriageways, high-speed dual carriageways, have very short on-slips, and they are difficult, but they're not impossibly difficult if you have the correct tools in your toolbox, if you like, the correct technique. And with a motorway, there should never be any excuse to, and I've seen this at least once, where somebody's actually stopped on the end of the slip, and the cars on lane one on a busy motorway have also stopped because there's utter confusion. Should never ever let that happen, of course. So what we have to do is, when we join a motorway, it's always in the gap. This one, you can see the lorry on the right and the car up here. Presumably that is the gap where we'll be entering. So our job is to get in front of this lorry, or fairly straightforward. However, it's not very easy if we don't know the lorry's there, and that lorry is often just behind us in our blind spot, and we won't pick it up in the door mirrors until we get much nearer. Then we have less time. So we need to check around the corner, do an eyesight, a shoulder check. It can be a little bit dangerous doing a shoulder check at high speeds, of course. So you need to make sure the steering is set. You wouldn't do it on a sharp bend. And you need to make sure there are no cars immediately in front of us. So we don't want to be following anybody closely down a slip. So we do this shoulder check, very quick shoulder check, maybe two, to judge the speed. And then we've got plenty of time to think, because all we've got to do is, with a lower gear, if needed, accelerate ahead, get well ahead of a lorry before we want to join, and join behind this car, because that also helps the lorry driver, of course. If we got an overhead view here, here's the lorry at the top here, car transporter, not going to want to change speed, certainly, and very unlikely to want to change lanes. And we, once we've spotted that by checking in our blind spot at the beginning of this slip road here, we can then have plenty of time to accelerate. Now, where a lot of people go wrong is they just are in the habit of trying to get out of the slip road here as soon as the hatch markings go to broken. But that cuts down the amount of time you and the lorry driver have to work together. So what you should do really, is stay left and come much further along the slip if necessary, right to the end, unless you have to then drop in behind something. And that gives plenty of time for you to work together. If you notice you're not going to accelerate past the lorry, then you can always slow down at an early stage, let the lorry come past and then come out after it. But you do not want to be panicking at the end here and coming to a stop. Removing the word suddenly for drivers. You know, our brains think very quickly when driving, but 2 seconds in driving is a very long time, actually. So it's what I call the 2 second plus rule. You will have heard of the 2 second rule in following distances, I'm sure. And this partly explains that. But generally 1 second to look, another second to assess, third second to decide, and another second to act after that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, look, assess, decide, and act. And what you can see sometimes, and it's usually younger drivers, to be fair, where people are overconfident. They come up to a familiar junction, they'll have a quick look one way or the other and out within 2 seconds. That can never be safe because our brains play tricks on us. We can miss motorbikes and cyclists. If we're doing it in certainly in less than 3 seconds, our observations at a junction, preferably 4 at least, then if we're doing it less than that, then it can never be safe. You cannot rush an observation because of the way our brain works and our eyesight works. More haste, less speed, anticipate and allow thinking time. And this is just a very quick example of where somebody didn't really allow that 1, 2, 3, 4. They reacted in 1 second. The blue car pulls up. The grey car within a second decides to go past and then feels like a bit of a fool because now understands why the blue car has pulled up. By staying back where I am, if the oncoming car wants to turn into that driveway, I'm not blocking the road and I've got options ahead of me. So following too closely and rushing decisions is never advisable. You're going to make mistakes. And if you're lucky, it's just a mistake where you have to reverse up. So LADA, look, assess, decide, act. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really important. And that leads on to right turns. Same principle applies. This is a crossroads, but for the sake of the first part of this, let's ignore the white car opposite, where the black car turning right. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a very quick drink. So we're the black car. Imagine there's no car opposite on this occasion. We're going to approach it, and if it's an open junction, and this is a flat area where it gives us view of the main road, we may be able to do that 1, 2, 3, 4, look, assess, decide, act on the approach. But often junctions are more closed down, and we don't get a view of the main road until at least the white line. So we get to the white line, we look right, we look left, we look right again, and when we take a final check as we act, we're still checking as we're acting. If it's hidden areas, something in the way, parked vehicle, for example, we do what we call peep and creep, which is extend that give way line forward by coming forward a little bit, stopping, leaning forward a bit more until we get the view, and then we take that time to look. Now, the actual art of, or the thing of coming across traffic from the where we are behind the white lines to straighten up where we're in the position to accelerate. I've looked at this, takes around 3 or 4 seconds, probably 4 seconds if you do. You need really a good position so you can allow cars who are turning left to come through if there's room. You can do it quicker, but that is the best position. That takes about 4 seconds until we're able to accelerate. Just to talk about the crossroads, I'll go on to talk a little bit more about the right turn in a moment, but if I'm that black car and there's a white car opposite, I would like, as that white car approaches, like to see that car sit back well off the white line to make it obvious. I don't want to see them waving to me or flashing their lights to tell me it's safe. I want to take my own time. I don't want to feel pressured. And if they sit back, I'm able to do that. And that's what I always try and do if somebody's at crossroads first. Sit back, take the pressure off. Now, the problem comes, we mentioned right turns earlier, it seems to be, from what we've looked at in Hampshire anyway, on the faster roads. So why is this? Well, let's say we take in 4 seconds. We're doing a really good look here, right, left, right, check, decide to act. We're coming out. It takes 4 seconds, we said, to come round like that, come round the corner there. The problem is in half that time, 2 seconds, the vehicle can travel almost 180 feet, 27 meters or 14 car lengths at 60 miles an hour. So if we look at the picture on the left, on the right there, if this is the junction, a car pretty much in half the time it takes to get out of a junction has covered that distance to the corner. So of course, the way we counterbalance that and keep safe is, as we've decided to act, we keep looking as we turn the corner. So we're steering, we're maneuvering, and we're looking ready to, in the emergency, have another stop And we have all up to the halfway line where in some extreme circumstances, we may need to pull up again, but we certainly need to be aware of that car turning up. I just brought up the stopping distance at 60 miles an hour is longer than we mentioned, actually. It's 18 car lengths. So what I've looked at is that although if we're looking at drivers, and tends to be over 80, and it seems to be pretty much across the board, not everybody by any means, but whenever we look, we seem to get this to a degree. One, it takes perhaps sometimes a little bit longer to come out, so maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds, which makes matters worse. But what tends to happen is the driver, once they've decided to go, concentrates on the maneuver and doesn't make these final checks. So they are much more vulnerable to things changing very rapidly as they maneuver. And equally, they don't always look at in the mirror once they get round to know that there's a fast car coming up and accelerate rapidly or let them pass, overtake. So it's ongoing observation, which is really important. Now, there may be a reason for that, and it's to do with sure processing of information. But I would say to anybody, really try and avoid these junctions, these type of junctions on the fast road, that you can always turn left, turn round somewhere and come back. Much, much safer. I'm going to play this video here, which is an extreme circumstance. This is in America, so he's doing a right turn in America, like our left turn, but he's looked left, look right, not really enough observation, but there's a long delay between the various looks, and he certainly hasn't double checked. And that's just sorry, it's just cut off there. That's extreme, but that sort of demonstrates what I was talking about there. It's very active mind, looking left, right, and continuing to look, particularly on fast roads. So top tips for keeping safe as we finish: concentration high, keep distractions low, maximize the available time and space to make decisions. That's the key. Concentration should be high and allow time and space. Always think, what if? Anticipate. What if that pedestrian steps out? What if that car pulls out? And remember, it's not about blame. It's not about who's in the right or wrong. It's about staying alive. That's defensive driving. So thank you for your attention. Hope you all stay safe, and back over to Rob.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much for that. Very good, Graham. Hopefully the videos weren't stuttering for some, because for me they were. So just hopefully they were going not too bad for yourselves. But I think we had a good, we had a load of questions that have come in for Graham. So I also certainly asked them in the panel section at the end, all about those. Hopefully we'll have time to answer all your questions. So we're now moving on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Paul White. Paul White is the CEO at Hidden Disabilities Sunflower and was part of the original team that founded the Sunflower back in 2016 and helped to create a thriving business from this simple yet effective idea. Paul has a genuine desire to ensure that the wearers of the Sunflower receive the patient's care and understanding that they may need throughout their day by whoever they meet, whoever they may travel. Paul is passionate about raising awareness of Sunflower on a global level. Paul is also managing director of Tabbers Green, a printing and related services business based in the UK. So over to you. Thank you very much, Paul. I've listened to a presentation by Paul before, which is one of the reasons I really wanted him today to come along and talk to you all. So thank you. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everybody. Just share my screen. As Rob said, my name's Paul White, and I'm the CEO of the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk to everybody today. So the first thing that I'm usually asked is, what is a hidden disability? So a hidden disability is a disability that may not be immediately obvious. People with hidden disabilities don't have physical signs, and these can include learning difficulties, mental health, as well as mobility, speech, visual or hearing impairments. It can also include asthma and other lung conditions, as well as chronic illnesses, such as diabetes, for instance, when these diseases significantly impact a person's day-to-day life. And living with these conditions can make daily life more demanding for many people. They affect people in different ways and they can be painful, exhausting and isolating. And without visible evidence of the disability, it's frequently difficult for others to acknowledge the challenges faced. And as a consequence, sympathy and understanding can often be in short supply. So the Sunflower is an awareness tool to enable a person with a non-visible disability to be recognised when they're out and about. People choose to wear the Sunflower to demonstrate their health condition and to show that they may need that additional support, help, or maybe just a little bit more time. There's no need to know or ask for a person's specific health condition. The Sunflower is a simple sign that the person's disability is not visible. In the UK, 1 in 5 people are disabled, and 80% of these people have a hidden disability. That's over 10 million people in the UK alone.
Disabled people make up 1 in 5 of the British population, and 80% of these have a hidden disability. This means that over 10 million people in the UK alone have a hidden disability. The Sunflower is here to discreetly indicate, if you may choose to, that you may need a little more time, care, or just simple understanding. The Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, making the invisible visible.
So the Sunflower seeks to help those that want to be discreetly recognised, to ensure they receive patience, understanding, support from those around them. In essence, we are making the invisible visible. The success of the Sunflower and the positive response it has received has increased the awareness of the challenges that adults with hidden disabilities face. There are literally hundreds of hidden disabilities, and the Sunflower is here to support them all.
Living with a disability can mean facing barriers in daily life. These can be physical, like buildings not having accessible toilets, or caused by negative attitudes towards disability. And incredibly, 80% of disabilities are hidden and may not be immediately obvious. There are literally hundreds of hidden disabilities, from anxiety disorders through to visual impairments, and the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower is here to illustrate them all. The Hidden Disabilities Sunflower, making the invisible visible.
So if your disability is not visible, it can be very difficult for others to identify, acknowledge, or understand the challenges that you face. We are dedicated in helping businesses and organisations identify their customers and their colleagues that have a hidden disability and become more confident to provide them with additional help or assistance. Now, this could simply mean giving them more time to prepare or process information, using clear verbal language, or just allowing them to remain with their families at all times. The Sunflower was first launched at Gatwick Airport in 2016 when they posed the question, how can we recognise that one of our passengers has a non-visible disability? We can recognise when someone has a visible disability, but what about those people whose disabilities are hidden? And the answer is a sunflower on a green background. Now, alongside the Airport Passenger Advisory Group, as well as working with local and national charities, we explored the idea of using a symbol to allow passengers to choose to indicate that they have an invisible health condition and they may need a little bit more support. And we chose the sunflower because it suggests happiness, positivity and strength, as well as growth and confidence. It's a globally recognised symbol and of course it's gender neutral. Our view is anyone who feels they would benefit from wearing a sunflower can obtain one. We do not ask for proof of a person's health condition because many people do not have one. For example, if they are waiting on a diagnosis or a diagnosis is not available, such as anxiety or maybe a phobia. A recent survey that we put forth to the sunflower community resulted in 70% of people surveyed agreed that people should not have to show proof. We ask businesses and organisations to provide the sunflower products for free to their customers and colleagues as part of their customer support and inclusion policies, but also to ensure a person isn't penalised financially for wanting to show their disability. Should you decide you would like to wear a sunflower, a map is available on our website that shows the businesses and organisations that will provide the sunflower products for free. Currently, there are over 12,000 locations in the UK alone that recognise and support the sunflower. Alternatively, should you prefer not to have to travel to one of these organisations, the sunflower products are available to purchase off of our store at www.hiddendisabilitiesstore.com. There are many different sunflower products, from lanyards to wristbands to clothing. There are also two ranges. There's the wearer range, which is a sunflower on a green background, designed to demonstrate that the wearer or somebody with them has a hidden disability. And the second is the eye support range, which is on a white background. Now, this range is for supporters and advocates of the sunflower, and you may see a number of frontline staff in businesses wearing these products. Locations that have joined the sunflower are trained to look out for the sunflower products and to act accordingly. So the success of the sunflower has been in part due to the huge number of businesses and organisations, both large and small, that have chosen to support the sunflower and for people with non-visible disabilities. These organisations are helping to normalise people's disabilities and educate their colleagues and customers that whilst we are all equal, we are certainly not all the same. Here are a few of these global organisations.
From airports to zoos, from sports venues to local shops, and from hospitals to banks, the sunflower is there for people to indicate that they have an invisible disability. So whether you are a new sunflower member or one that's been with us since the beginning, we would like to thank you for recognising that some disabilities are not visible. Together, we can make a difference with an offer of help, an act of kindness, or simply giving a sunflower wearer a little more time. Making the invisible visible with the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower.
So what do you do if you see someone wearing a sunflower product? Firstly, always remember that they have chosen to wear the sunflower because they want to be seen. So firstly, recognise they have a hidden disability and simply ask if you can help. The sunflower highlights that a person's disability is not visible and they may need that extra time, care, or just some understanding. Be kind, face the sunflower wearer and listen closely, have patience, do not judge them as not every disability is visible, and it's important you do not make assumptions about the person wearing the sunflower. And finally, and most importantly, show respect. I'm delighted to announce that this coming Wednesday at NAIDEX in Birmingham, we are launching our Sunflower on the Road campaign with National Highways. Now, in many ways, a person's disability is always invisible when they're in a vehicle. So the Sunflower has partnered with National Highways to provide free sunflower car stickers to disabled road users to discreetly demonstrate their disability. So should you break down or need assistance on the motorway or major A roads, displaying a sunflower on your vehicle can provide awareness that you or someone in your vehicle is a sunflower wearer and they may need that additional support. Traffic officers are often first on the scene in an emergency and have now been trained to understand the meaning of the sunflower to the wearer. National Highways recognise the challenges faced by disabled users and have funded the provision of sunflower car stickers and magnets for whoever would benefit. Now, as I mentioned, this campaign is being launched on Wednesday. However, National Highways have given me permission to release this information to you today. On Wednesday, a page will become live on our website that will enable you to order the stickers for free, and I encourage you to take advantage of this offer if you think this would be a benefit to you. I'm also quite excited as this is the first presentation of our new video that fully explains our campaign and how it will support drivers with non-visible disabilities.
The Hidden Disabilities Sunflower, in partnership with National Highways. Displaying the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower indicates that you have an invisible disability and that you may need help, support, or just a little more time. We want you to feel confident that you have the help you need if you break down or need assistance on the motorway. If you have an invisible disability, this could mean making sure you have support with understanding instructions and communicating your needs, staying calm at times of stress, getting to a place of safety, moving and recovering an adapted vehicle. National Highways traffic officers are often first on the scene in an emergency on the motorway. A sunflower sticker or magnet on the rear of your vehicle will indicate to traffic officers that you have a non-visible disability, so they know immediately that you may require additional support. If a traffic officer sees the sticker on your vehicle, they'll ask you about what support you need. They will always ask how they can help. Listen closely to what you tell them. Be kind and patient, not judge, and treat you with respect. If you get into trouble on the motorway, contact National Highways first and then a breakdown provider. Use a free roadside emergency phone or call 0300 123 5000. You can also text National Highways on 0738 028 3600 for roadside assistance. Tell the operator that you are a member of the Sunflower scheme. They can make sure other recovery and emergency services are aware of your needs too. The Sunflower car stickers and magnets are free. You can order them from the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower website at www.hiddendisabilitiesstore.com/National Highways. Display the sunflower on the rear of your vehicle on the passenger's side so it can easily be seen by a traffic officer but doesn't obscure your view. Making the invisible visible with the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower.
So on Wednesday, if you are a sunflower wearer, I really encourage you to visit our sites and obtain one of our car stickers or magnets for free to provide you with support should you need it when using the motorways or the A roads. So supporting and celebrating diversity and bringing awareness of people's hidden disabilities are at the core of our organisation. Our goal is simply to improve everyday experiences and interactions for people with hidden disabilities. And with your support, I'm sure this can be achieved. So thank you for listening, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that presentation. Yeah, nice to be able to present to you.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. That was wonderful to have that really important input, because I think there are so many hidden disabilities out there that all of us are struggling with. And it's really important that all of us are aware of those and aware of the difficulties that people are facing in the world. So I'll ask our presenters to come back on the screen. I see Kit's back with us. So I'll just ask Graham to turn his camera on and unmic himself. That would be great. I'm just going to show us so that you can see as a gallery view now, hopefully. There we are. We're all up on the screen. So load of questions have come in. Whether I'm afraid I'm going to be able to answer all of them is another point. So we'll start where we can. So Graham, this might be one for you. I think quite a few might be from your presentation. How do you know when is the right time to stop driving?
If I knew the answer to that, I'd be a millionaire. It's extremely difficult because, you know, driving is so important. We're emotionally attached to the car. As a rough guide, the advice is when you hear people blowing their horn, when you start having near misses, when you find you can't deal with busy situations anymore, well, doesn't necessarily mean stop, but certainly adjust your driving. Stay on more straightforward roads. Stay away from these fast right turns, for example, and have an assessment, because professionals can guide on that and manage the whole situation. Maybe able to keep you driving for longer if you're worried.
Yeah.
So not an easy answer.
No, and I think it's all back to this complacency. You know, there are those who are worried about it, and great. I don't want you to worry, but this is the time to think about getting an appraisal to build up your confidence again and find out if things are the sort of causing an issue with you. But also, it's just a great way to brush up on your skills. We all pick up bad habits, and like Graham says, they're a wonderful thing. And we've had quite a few questions coming up about where I find out about courses. We are running a webinar on Wednesday all about assessments and appraisals. So if you haven't registered for that, have a look. That will answer those questions. But if you can't make that, have a look at our website. We have a page called Courses, and that will give you a link to all the courses that are available in the UK in your area. So thank you very much for that. So Highway Code 1 may not be able to answer this, but what are the new rules in the Highway Code, and when do they come into force, and when is the code being updated? I think you answered this a bit in your presentation, to be honest. You're muted again, Graham.
I'll leave myself on. Sorry. I gave an overview, and it's going through Parliament, I understand, and I think they plan to publish the new book later in the autumn, but it's all online. It will be as soon as it's given the go ahead. Okay. Rightio, another question here, and this is a common one actually. Am I unusual in having lost my confidence in driving since the end of lockdowns? I can quickly answer some of that. I'm getting loads of emails, lots of inquiries from people who are definitely concerned about driving again because they've not been driving much before, or because of lockdown, they've been stuck at home a lot more. We've got some information on our website under the lockdown, giving you guides about how to get back and get your confidence back up. But again, this is where the opportunity arises to think about doing a driving appraisal. Yes, they're very busy at the moment, but maybe book yourself in with one, because then they can come along, take you out in your car and give you a brush up, but maybe get a member of your family to take you out in the car with you and give you some confidence. Is there anything else you feel to add to that, Graham? No, I think that's covered it, but we found the same. People who haven't driven much previously with a break have lost a bit of confidence. Yeah, we specialise in that. In Hampshire, we've got courses, but I'm sure other places do as well. Yeah. So one for you, Kit, really. The number of drivers having accidents, I think this is one of your charts, comparison between 2010 and 2014, and then again 2016-18, says the first period is 4 years, the second is 3 years. It looks as if risks have not changed per year. Would that be the case?
That is correct, yes. The bars on the chart show the risk per year.
Okay, grand. And I think another one for you, Kit, you apparently mentioned that crashes for 80+ drivers was partly due to pedal confusion in cars with automatic transmission. Is this mainly drivers that have been driving autos for a long time, or drivers who have recently changed to an auto?
These are reports from insurance companies. We don't have that information.
Yes, I think it's early days at the moment. I think, Graham, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've looked at this because, you know, I've had about 6,000 driving reports come across my desk in the last 10 years, and occasionally we'll come across this type of thing. And I mentioned on my presentation, it does seem to me that the catastrophic accidents where people continue to press that pedal rather than the brake is slowness of thinking, and it may well, we've got no evidence, I'd like to have, but may well be linked to a cognitive sort of medical condition. Okay, thank you. I know a lot of investigations are going on this, and it's something actually the work that myself and Kit are doing with the Older Drivers Task Force. It's going to be covered somewhat in the task force report a little bit, but we are wanting more research to be done, certainly in relation to this. So moving on from that, this is an interesting one. Should someone stop if they're diagnosed with age-related macular degeneration? Now, I can answer this question for you. I wouldn't say it's down to what your optician says.
Now, on Friday, we're having a talk about Eyesight, and it's covered in the webinar. And we're actually running a case study of a lady who actually has a diagnosis of macular degeneration, and it leads through her story. Now, it doesn't mean that immediately you have to stop driving. It may be at a time in the future when it gets severe, you need to cease from driving, but it's really much down to what your optician says. So take advice from your optician in relation to that. Right. I think I had one for you, Paul, which was basically to do with the stickers, but I think you've covered that quite well. Someone was obviously keen to get some stickers, but you've covered that well, that it's going to be on the website and very soon.
On Wednesday.
Lovely. Fantastic. On Wednesday. So please do visit their website, and you'll get lots of information and be able to get the stickers from there. Are the stickers free, Paul?
Yes, it's all being funded by National Highways, so it's completely free. So it's either a car sticker or it's also a magnet. So if you haven't got a window at the back, such as if you've got a van or a truck or even a motorbike, for instance, you can get a magnet that works just the same.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's have a look at some more. Someone talking about their license renewal. We did have one who said they put it in, and within a week from doing it online, they got it back within a week, which is fantastic. But then we have got another person here who has talked about renewing their license, and unfortunately has received an email from their consultant or received an email from consultant secretary that all the forms have been returned to the DVLA saying that they were safe to drive, and should they chase the DVLA. I've recommended that they should just chase up with the DVLA in relation to that. I don't think any of our speakers can really answer any more on that, unless Graham, you wanted to.
Yeah, very briefly, you can chase up DVLA, but you'll probably be out of luck, I'm afraid, because they are in a bit of a mess at the moment, I think, in terms of backlogs, and you may not even be able to get through to them. It's just a case of waiting, unfortunately, but try and chase them up. So.
Yeah. So how many accidents to older drivers are really caused by impatient and aggressive younger drivers? Now, I'm not sure that's one for Kit. He might have some knowledge on that, but Graham may have some stuff.
Yes,
Kit, yeah.
No, I've got nothing on that.
Okay.
I think this is about driver behavior, isn't it? And I think there's degrees. We know that stress and frustration causes any driver to react in a bad way. So in the extreme, and I'm only talking about this because the question was asked, but in the extreme, if any driver is going along a straight road with no particular hazards, well under the speed limit, you're going to get frustration. Now, this is where the difficult thing comes, because I already said in my presentation, as you get older, you need to slow things down, particularly the approach to difficult situations. But on the other side, I would say, when it's safe, you shouldn't have to go up to the speed limit, but if you're being followed, just pull over or try and keep somewhere near the speed limit, because there's nothing you can do about driver behavior, unfortunately. But that's all I can say, I'm afraid.
That's great. Thank you. And we've had one here. I now live in Devon, where country roads with 60-mile-per-hour limits have many T-junctions where it is impossible to see far along the main road because of bends or hedges. Would you advise older drivers to avoid these roads? Really, I think, Graham, again, over to you.
Yeah, that's sometimes you have to use these ones, don't you? Avoid them if you can. If it's a right turn, turn left, turn around, come back. But one thing that people don't often think about is, unless your hearing is not so good, but which is sometimes the case, is make sure the window's open. Use your sense of hearing. Turn the radio off. Stop people talking, because you will often hear vehicles coming. I know that the introduction of electric vehicles or quiet vehicles goes against that, but that's the first thing. But ultimately, yeah, just avoid these really difficult junctions if you can.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. This is an interesting one. What I need really is a course in modern car technology, so that when I buy a new car, I understand it, because otherwise you get this manual of 400 pages and really you can't get through it. And I totally agree. even me and myself buying a new car, looking at it's a minefield of information. And I think it's certainly the government is certainly looking at trying to make more responsibility to people who sell cars, to train people up on the vehicles that they get, rather than there's a book, off you go. And interestingly, tomorrow we're having a webinar on electric vehicles and advanced vehicle technology, and they're going to be going through some of the technology and how it works. So that might be useful if you haven't booked for that to be able to see. But a lot of people are saying, oh, I can't see those webinars. All our webinars are recorded, so if you do miss them, they will be up on the website next week for you to view. So just visit the Older Drivers Forum website. Graham, was there anything you wanted to say in relation to the technology at all in vehicles?
No, not really. Is you know, if you don't understand the technology, most vehicles you can drive them in a standard manner. Certainly don't try and use the technology when you're driving along. You just use the basic concepts of it. It is a problem, yeah. But
okay, thank you. And probably one for Kit and Graham here. How many accidents are caused by bad road design rather than age, do you think? Kit, is there anything you may want to put into that?
I can't put numbers onto it, but I think a lot are. People don't want to have accidents, and I think quite a number are caused by optical illusions, lack of sight lines, many features of road designs. Not having roundabouts where you can, because roundabouts are so much safer than crossroads or T-junctions.
And I know, Kit, from our work with the Older Drivers Task Force, some of the recommendations we have under is under road design, certainly in highly populated older person areas, is about replacing T-junctions with roundabouts or traffic lights. Yes, they're expensive, but actually we know that they're likely to save lives. So Graham, any input you wanted to put?
No, only to say in local authorities, when there is a nasty accident, particularly fatal accident, it will be investigated in terms of the road layout. Can anything be done? And of course, there's only a certain amount of budget. You can't just do it. But, you know, that's looked at. But I agree with Kit. There's a lot we could do nationally.
Yes, no problems. Right. As it always is on these, Graham, loads of roundabout questions. I know you covered it well, but I'm just going to go through some of the roundabout ones. At a mini roundabout and cars arrive at the same time, who has right of way?
Yeah, I've had that question before, and it's a really good question. My only advice would be to try and plan your approach so you don't get there and stop when it's like that sort of situation, because if you can just keep a little bit of movement on the car and let it flow onto the roundabout, you do away with that. Now, that's not always possible. If you are stopped, it's a bit like a crossroads. The first one to move gets onto the roundabout, I guess others have to give way. My only advice really is one, try and keep moving if safe, only if safe, of course. But the other thing is never make a quick dash for anything from a stop, because that's what drivers can't deal with. It's far better to start to move, keep watching. You can always stop again if somebody else beats you to it. It's not an easy answer. Take an assessment and ask the assessor.
Yeah, it's always is. When I did my police driving thing, it was always this thing, time to react. That was always the bit that was taught us, time to react. So yes, other people might make mistakes, but if you give yourself time to react to anything that's ahead, then hopefully we can avoid it. So maybe it may be you sitting and waiting till it's clear for you to pull out. Okay. Why do highways paint on the roundabout with 2 lanes entering the roundabout, the left-hand lane only, the right-hand lane saying ahead and right? Surely the left-hand lane should be left and ahead, and the right lane for right only. It seems to contradict the highway code.
I saw that question, and basically they changed the lane markings to suit the area. So, for example, if the left turn is a particularly busy turn, by dedicating it to a lane to that turning, you can use the other lane to let the traffic flow. So you might, in rush hour, for example, get a queue of cars. So it allows others to get onto the roundabout. So there's so many reasons why they do that. It's to do with traffic flows and things like this.
Yeah, and another one about spiral roundabouts, about sometimes that the markings are very faint, so locals know where they're going, but sometimes visitors coming in there can easily get confused and drift across. So really, it's if you do come across that, it's about notifying the highways agency to really get them to kind of redo it again. Someone says, I note that no mention of riding motorcycles. You know, many people in their 70s are riding their motorcycles, and what do we feel about that?
Oh, I did mention motorcycles once, and it's not because it's really important, but you know, you can't put everything in. The key thing, motorcyclists are very vulnerable at junctions, and with that 1, 2, 3, 4, I said, and the double check, you know, they're taking the time. You're much more likely to see a motorcyclist or a fast cyclist come along than these people I mentioned who come up, have a look, and come out. So it's about allowing your eyes and your brain to focus and assess and make a safe decision, really.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Okay, another one really for you, Kit, here. Do you have charts, or perhaps you could just give us a little talk about accident rates by age and miles driven per year?
Yes, I don't have a chart to put up, although there are some. There is some evidence that if you drive less than about 2,000 miles a year, you're more likely to become more prone to accidents as you age. So keeping, if you're going to drive, keep driving, basically.
Yeah, and I think that very much comes up with, isn't it? As we get older, the stats do tend to show that females are more risky as you get older compared to males. Would that be correct as well, Kit?
Yes, that is correct. And that's also lines up with the fact they do a much lower mileage.
Yes, and that's why it's really important for couples, if you're out in a car, to share the driving at times. So therefore your partners can be confident in driving more, rather than just the man always doing the driving sometimes, which is certainly in the older generation has always been the case. I know it's changing now with generations, but certainly trying to share the driving much more will end up making you both much safer. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another one on here is about joining slip roads. So how do I do with dealing with a slip road? So if I'm coming up, certainly on some of these shallow slip roads, and I need to give room to people, what's the best advice about that?
I tried to cover that in my presentation, but it's about spotting the vehicle, the danger vehicle, as early as possible. And if possible, and you can get bubble mirrors and things, but you need to somehow check into that blind spot. You can't always see it very early. And if you can spot it early, you've got a length of slip to build up speed or slow down and allow it to go, and use the full length of the slip road, really. Yeah. Again, driving assessments can help on that.
And Kit?
Yes, I use bubble mirrors on both my wing mirrors, and they're an absolute godsend for seeing things in the blind spot. Also for parking in reverse, you can set them to see the back wheels of your car and just run them along the white line of the parking space.
Fantastic. And where did you get those, Kit?
Halfords. They cost about £5 for a pair.
Okay, that's good. Right, so thank you for that. Let's have a look. This is another one, Graham. We have this nearly every presentation. At a crossroads where there is no indication of right of way to either car turning right, who basically has right of way, and how is it best to turn in front of people or behind people?
This is mainly applied to, well, it can be applied to either from the side road or on the main road, but let's talk about on the main road. You're approaching a right turn, somebody's approaching from the other side to turn to their right. It really, you've got to work it out between you if there are no road markings, because if you say, right, I'm going to go around that car because I get a better view, and they decide to cut across you, it doesn't work very well. So you have to hold back on the approach a little bit. Try and, if they're really approaching at speed, you know, just use the brakes, let them go and follow around. It depends very much on the circumstance, but certainly if you go round each other, you're going to get a better view because you're not having a car block or a vehicle blocking your view.
Okay, right. I'll have a look at some of the questions that come in. Can you give, so really for you, Paul, can you give the highways numbers again, please, for us? The ones which obviously I think you gave some highways numbers out.
Yes, I can.
Throw you
give
in quickly
that.
on there tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Put me on the spot there. We're trying to get the trying to get it back up. So
do you want to have a look and we go on to another question? I'll come back to you in a second.
I'll throw it away in a minute. Absolutely.
No problems. I'll come back to you in a second. So another one, I had difficulty driving at night with bright lights, particularly LED lights. We've had several on this. My optician had a special coating put on my new lenses. The pleasure of driving at night is back. So that's obviously a good thing to do. Recommend that to people. Another thing is we have a video on our website under our video tab, which talks about driving at night and trying to avoid being dazed by light. Kit, you wanted to say something?
Another thing is if you're getting another car, get one where you sit high above the road because you're above the beams of the lights and you're less dazzled.
That's a very good idea. Thank you. Let me have a look. I'm terrified of breaking down on smart motorways. What's the correct procedure for this? Graham, shall I answer it or are you happy?
Sorry,
Yep.
You can answer it, Rob.
Right, yeah. Okay, so I think the highway code or the highways NGC, basically if you break down on a motorway and you can get to the left-hand lane, the advice is to move across to that and stop. And what we would suggest, if you then have a barrier to your side, it's always best to get out of your vehicle if it's safe to do so. However, if you break down on a live lane where there's traffic either side of you, then the recommendation is to stay in your vehicle, put your hazard lights on, and basically they do have cameras along the whole section. They should pick you up and put the red cross sign over the lane you're in as quickly as possible. But if you can move to the left or to the right, that would be my recommendation. Left is best because that's going to be more likely to be the slower position because fast moving traffic's on the right. But please, if you can, move to the left.
Just want to say there, Rob, we tend to focus on smart motorways and then that is an issue. It's a worry. But remember that a lot of busy dual carriageways are the same. They haven't got a hard shoulder. And we had a horrendous accident in, I think it was in Hampshire or just over the border recently. Unfortunately, there are about 3 fatalities because someone broke down on a dual carriageway and the lorry driver wasn't concentrating and ploughed into the back of them and the pickup truck and everything. So it's not just smart motorways, it's fast, busy dual carriageways as well.
But we need to point out that motorways are actually the safest roads out there, even the smart motorways. And it's because traffic's all running in the same direction and people aren't pulling across in front of you. So please don't be scared of motorways. But if you are, this is an opportunity for a driving appraisal because they could take you out on a motorway and brush up your confidence in those areas. So I'll just go back to Paul.
Yep, I've managed to get your numbers.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. So if you break down on a motorway or an A road, the number to call is 0300 123 5000, or you can text 038 028 3600. So when we if you order one of the sunflower packs, you will receive an information leaflet with that pack, and that's got all of those numbers on there. And it's also got other information from National Highways as to what to do should you break down on a motorway. So similar to the information that yourself and the other panelists are giving out, Rob.
That's great. Fantastic. And Paul, just interest, have you just remind us of your website so people can go back to that?
So it's www.hiddendisabilitiesstore.com.
Lovely, fantastic. And one thing more, Paul, is the sunflower idea an international, or are you intending it to be?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we have a local presence in Australia, New Zealand, the US and Canada, Holland, Belgium, and Denmark currently.
Brilliant.
We're also recognised in over 100 global airports, and that's growing all the time. As it's one of the recommendations by IATA that all airports globally should recognise the sunflower scheme. So our hope is, and our goal is to ensure an end-to-end travel experience for sunflower wearers.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, we have another question on here, which I can probably answer. That says there's a long list of health conditions one has to tell the DVLA about. But if they do not affect your driving and your doctor agrees, you do not have to report them, which is very true. There's actually, I think, around about 183 notifiable conditions. And if you want to find out about those, again, on our website, there's a page under advice called medical conditions, and that will take you to the 183. And you can click on each one of them and it will tell you what you need to know. So things like diabetes, for example, if you're insulin dependent, it's something you need to tell the DVLA about, but if you're not, you don't. But actually, there's also some strange ones in there, a bit like there's one called deja vu. Apparently, you have to inform the DVLA if you've got deja vu, which is, I mean, we're all thinking strange on that, but apparently that's early signs of epilepsy and things like that. So, but each one is explained and explains if you need to tell the DVLA about it. Interestingly, if someone asks a question about glasses and things, if you have to wear glasses to drive, if you tell the DVLA, they will endorse your license that you require glasses to drive. But it's actually not a notifiable medical condition. Sounds very strange, that, doesn't it? But there you go. Let's just have a look. Some more questions. Do mobility scooters have the same rights on the highway as cars? Graham's shrugging his shoulders. Well, I think
I'll try. Sorry.
Go on then, Graham. Go for it.
Well, no, there's different different grades or types. I can't remember the wording for it of mobility scooters. But the ones that are designed to go on the road, then I'm thinking that it's the same rights in following the same laws. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah. I would have to look it up.
Yeah, I think basically the way you look at it is they're a road user. Anybody who's on the road, we need to respect them. And in fact, the new highway code is very much going to be dealing with vulnerable road users, the likes of disabilities, with cyclists, motorcyclists, pedestrians and things like that. So we very much are based around that and really actually making them more priority that we should, as motorists, because we're driving big vehicles with metal around us, have to be more aware of vulnerable road users and often give way to them much more. And I think the highway code will be covering that a lot more. Let's have a look. It says you haven't mentioned sat navs. Very often one has two inputs, that reality, the reality and the sat nav view. You have to keep awareness of which is most important. And for instance, it may seem from the sat nav that there is nobody following you. I'm not sure on that bit, but any advice on using sat navs, Graham?
Yeah, they're very, very useful if used in the correct way, but you can't let it, be instead of your normal driving planning. And, have a look, even if you're using sat nav, have a look on the map before you set off to try and figure out where you're going. But sat navs can tell you which lane you're going to be in for the next roundabout, for example, but you can't overuse them and get distracted. And you've got to, I was mentioned there, knowing what's behind you. If you're too focused on something, you're not going to be aware of what's going on. But so you need to do both.
Yes. Kit, you've got an input.
Yes, not on sat navs, but for journey planning. What I find really useful is to use Street View and actually drive the journey on Street View, coming up to difficult junctions, seeing where signs are, seeing which lane to be in. It's an absolute godsend.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you. So it's about making sensible, really. And I'll just say from my old work as a roads policing officer, it's very much being aware, driving with a distraction in the vehicle. Sat navs can be a distraction. So your 100% focus really should be the road ahead. So that's why it's sometimes useful to hear the sat nav rather than look at it. Kit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I keep my sat nav out of view, but listen to the commentary.
Yeah, because there are offences that you can commit for being distracted by not looking at the road ahead. And really that is where the hazards are, really. And if you need to be confused, find a safe place to pull over, look at your sat nav at that point. Graham.
Oh, the quick one, the big thing with any of this, and particularly sat navs, is we said you can't do anything suddenly. So if you're confused by a sat nav and you think, oh, it wants me to go there, you cannot suddenly go there. No. You have to you know, follow the roundabout round if you're in the right lane, or carry on and come off at another exit, turn around, let it reset you. You can't do anything suddenly in panic because the sat nav wants you to go there.
Yeah, and I think someone's just asked a question back on smart motorways again, and thank you for bringing this up. Was basically they said there are laybys that are put in safe havens along the smart motorways for people to get to. So yes, that would be your priority. If you can get to one of the safe laybys first, that would be your priority. But sometimes your vehicles break down between that, because I think they're trying to make them every half mile or every mile now or something like that. It depends, but yes, do try and make it so that's going to be your safe haven, because they'll actually have phones and things like that in there as well. So good point. Thank you for mentioning that. Graham, with your head on about driving appraisals, are driver assessments free? If not, what's their average cost?
We would love to make them free, but we have to, in our area, we have to pay the driving assessor because we want the best. There's no point in just having the sort of people who haven't got experience with older drivers. So we have to pay them, and we pass that cost on. We are in Hampshire subsidised by the road safety budget to a degree, but with the current things with budgets, etc., that's getting stretched now. So, you know, ours would be, for example, 45, but they can go up to £60, or you can get them cheaper. It's about shopping around, but they're generally not free.
Yeah, I think that's the point. So, but it's invaluable, really. I have to say, I can't say more than enough on it. And if you want to know more about driving appraisals, we're going to be talking about those on Wednesday. We still have some places left, so book your place on Wednesday, or if you can't make it, watch the webinar on it'll be recorded, and you'll be able to watch it after Wednesday, usually a couple of days later. So I think that's pretty much all our questions I'm going to go through. We're coming near the end of our time now, so I'm going to say thank you very much to our 3 speakers that we've had today. Really useful session. Really hope that everybody's found it useful. If you want to re-watch the webinar again, it is being recorded and we will be available for you to watch. So it's just one of those things that do make sure that you enjoy yourselves, be safe on the road. Some bits I'll say is at the end of the webinar, you'll get a short feedback survey. Please fill that in. It just allows us to plan for future webinars in the future. Like I said, there's lots on our website. We really want to encourage you to visit our website, which is www.olderdriversforum.com. You'll see it up on my shoulder up here. Feed that in, or just even do through your web provider, your web search field, just put Older Drivers Forum and you'll come up with us there. And then we've got lots of videos, advice. You can renew your license, use the right links to renew your license through our website. Lots to do with eyesight, medical conditions, you name it. Lots of videos, lots to help you there. So please do have a visit on there. And if you want to know what's happening in the future, then click our follow button on the website and you'll get emails when new information comes forwards. So that's pretty much brings me to the end. So thank you very much, Dr. Kit Mitchell. Thanks very much, Graham Millwood. And thank you very much, Paul White. Thank you ever so much for your talks today. We really hope you enjoyed the webinar and we look forward to you joining us for the future webinars. So thank you very much and goodbye.